Blood trickled down Judge Eleanor Mitchell's temple as Officer Jason Rawlins pressed the barrel of his service weapon against her skin, his voice dripping with menace. "Not so high and mighty now, are you?" he sneered, unaware of the power held by the woman he'd targeted. Sirens wailed faintly in the distance, a lifeline she clung to mentally. As a federal judge, Eleanor knew her identity was her hidden ace, one she'd placed strategically to unravel a corrupt system. Welcome to The Heart Listens, where we expose injustice and celebrate courage. Drop a comment with your city, hit that like button, and subscribe to join our community of truth seekers. Have you ever witnessed authority abused right before your eyes? Comment 1 if you've seen it, 2 if you believe Judge Mitchell should fight for every victim of this corruption. Let's dive into how a routine traffic stop in Westbrook, Michigan, became a battle against systemic racism that shook a town to its foundations. At 53, Judge Eleanor Mitchell was a pillar of the Eastern District of Michigan's federal court, her 20-year career defined by unwavering fairness and legal acumen that silenced even her critics. Her reputation preceded her, sharp, principled, and unflappable in the face of complex cases. Today, however, wasn't about gavels or robes. She'd traded her judicial attire for a simple sweater and jeans, driving her modest Toyota sedan, not her usual Mercedes, toward rural Westbrook to visit her sister Patricia. The late afternoon sun stretched long shadows across the quiet two-lane highway, jazz humming softly from the radio as she anticipated a weekend of family and rest. Westbrook was a familiar pass-through, a small town she'd driven by countless times but rarely stopped in, its quaint charm masking a darker undercurrent she'd soon uncover. As she cruised at a steady 35 miles per hour, flashing blue lights appeared in her rearview mirror. Reflexively, Eleanor checked her speedometer, dead on the limit. She signaled, pulled onto the shoulder, and lowered her window, placing both hands visibly on the steering wheel, a habit drilled into her by her father decades ago to ensure safety during police encounters. 2 officers approached, their hands resting heavily on holstered guns, an aggressive posture for a routine stop. Officer Jason Rawlins leaned toward her window, his nameplate glinting, his mirrored sunglasses hiding his eyes. His expression held no trace of professional courtesy, only a cold scrutiny that shifted as he took in her appearance. A black woman in a nice car. "License and registration. Now," he barked, his tone sharp and devoid of respect. Eleanor kept her voice calm, her judicial training anchoring her. "Good afternoon, officer. May I ask why I was pulled over?" At the passenger window, Officer Bennett scoffed loudly, his own hand twitching near his weapon. Rawlins's face hardened. "You were doing 40 in a 35. License and registration, or we're gonna have a problem." Eleanor knew with absolute certainty she hadn't exceeded the limit. She'd checked her speed moments before. The lie was blatant, and she recognized the scenario from countless civil rights cases she'd presided over, a pretextual stop, often the prelude to something uglier. "I don't believe I was speeding, officer," she said evenly, "but I'm happy to provide my information. I'd also like your badge numbers, please." The request, legally sound and politely delivered, ignited a spark of contempt in Rawlins. He leaned closer, his voice slow and mocking, as if she couldn't comprehend. "Listen, sweetheart, you people always cause trouble, driving through where you don't belong. Worry less about my badge and more about doing what you're told." The phrase, "you people," landed like a slap, its racial weight unmistakable. Eleanor had heard it in depositions, read it in police reports, and seen it devastate defendants in her courtroom. Her pulse quickened, but her face remained a mask of composure, honed by years of navigating high-stakes legal battles. Officer Bennett chimed in, smirking. "We got a lawyer here, Jason. Watch out." Rawlins's laugh was cold, humorless. "Nah, she probably just watches those cop shows, don't you, honey?" Eleanor reached slowly for her purse on the passenger seat to retrieve her ID, announcing her movement clearly. "I'm getting my license now." Before she could touch it, Bennett shouted, "She's reaching for a weapon." The situation exploded. Both officers drew their guns, yanked open her door, and dragged her from the car with jarring force. Her shoulder burned as they slammed her against the Toyota's hood, the metal hot against her cheek. Handcuffs snapped onto her wrists, tightened until they bit into her skin. "Resisting arrest and threatening an officer," Bennett declared, his voice smug as he rifled through her purse, tossing items carelessly. "Pretty nice car for someone like you. Where'd you steal it?" Eleanor's mind raced, cataloging every detail: Rawlins's racial slurs, Bennett's excessive force, the fabricated charges. Her judicial training kicked in, turning outrage into precise observation. She chose not to reveal her identity as a federal judge. This wasn't about escaping mistreatment, it was about exposing how these officers treated someone they assumed was powerless. A passing car slowed, and she glimpsed a teenager in the passenger seat holding up a phone, recording. Bennett stormed toward them, shouting, "Move along!" The car sped off, but Eleanor memorized the license plate, filing it away as potential evidence. Rawlins shoved her toward the cruiser, muttering, "Nice car, designer purse. Must be a real good job, huh?" The insinuation that a black woman couldn't legally afford such things was as clear as it was vile. The Westbrook police station was a time capsule of neglect, its cracked linoleum floors and water-stained ceilings lit by harsh fluorescent bulbs. A Confederate flag mug sat prominently on a desk, and a framed "Whites Only" sign hung like a trophy, masquerading as historical decor. Officers glanced at Eleanor with contempt as Rawlins and Bennett marched her through the processing area, their grips unnecessarily tight. No one questioned the sight of a middle-aged black woman in handcuffs, suggesting such scenes were routine. They locked her in a small holding cell with two other black detainees, Tasha and Marcus. The steel door slammed shut, its echo final. Tasha, in her late 20s, sat with arms crossed, her eyes wary. Marcus, barely 19, paced with nervous energy. Eleanor introduced herself as Eleanor, omitting her title to build trust. Tasha shared her story haltingly. She'd been shopping when a boutique owner accused her of shoplifting, despite her receipt. Rawlins arrived, ignored her proof, and handcuffed her immediately. Marcus, fresh off a grocery store shift, was detained for loitering in the parking lot while awaiting his mother, despite showing his employee badge. Both faced vague charges like suspicious behavior. Eleanor asked probing questions, drawing on her legal expertise without revealing it, noting the pattern. Same officers, same tactics, same disregard for rights. Heavy footsteps interrupted. Chief Hargrove, a weathered man in his late 50s with a sheriff's star, appeared with Rawlins and Bennett. His gaze dripped with disdain. "Well, well, busy day in Westbrook," he said, fixing on Eleanor. "You're the one giving my officers trouble on a simple traffic stop." She requested her phone call. "Phone calls are a privilege, not a right," Hargrove lied, adding, "Computer issues today. Your paperwork might take a while." Rawlins smirked, listing charges: speeding, resisting arrest, disrespecting an officer. "Might be more once we finish the report." Eleanor calmly refuted each charge, citing her compliance and the lack of evidence for speeding. Hargrove waved her off, mentioning Judge Crawford's court schedule for the next day. She noted the name, another piece of the puzzle. In the cell, Tasha and Marcus revealed Westbrook's systemic targeting of Oak Lane, a historically black neighborhood. Residents faced relentless traffic stops, citations, and fines, often linked to Victor Crane's development company buying properties at below market rates. Marcus's grandmother was offered half her home's value, then fined for her garden's unmaintained state. Eleanor recognized the pattern from housing discrimination cases, harassment to forced sales. Hours later, Officer Daniels, a young officer with a professional demeanor, approached to process her. Seeing her ID, his eyes widened. "You're Judge Eleanor Mitchell from the Eastern District?" He hurried to Hargrove's office, and the station's atmosphere shifted dramatically. What happens when corrupt officers realize they've targeted someone with real power? Comment 1 if you've witnessed authority abused, 2 if you think Judge Mitchell should fight for all victims. Like and subscribe for stories of courage against corruption. What's her next move? Panic swept the station. Hargrove emerged, his earlier contempt replaced by forced joviality. "Judge Mitchell, an unfortunate misunderstanding. We had no idea of your position," Rawlins muttered. If you'd identified yourself, this could have been avoided. Eleanor's voice was steel. No citizen should endure this treatment, regardless of status. Officers scrambled, hiding the Confederate mug and White's only sign. Paperwork materialized as Daniels processed her release with trembling hands. Judge Samuel Crawford, silver-haired and impeccably suited, arrived, exuding false sincerity. Judge Mitchell, my deepest apologies for this incident. Perhaps we could discuss privately, one judicial professional to another. She declined, requesting her belongings. She caught Bennett rearranging her purse's contents, likely hiding evidence of their rough search. Through the station's glass doors, Eleanor saw two officers escorting an elderly black man in handcuffs, berating him for a code violation. Crawford signaled them to a side entrance, revealing routine abuse. Eleanor requested a phone call, claiming her phone was dead. She called her clerk, David, using coded language. I'm delayed on the Hampton discrimination briefs. Research rural traffic stops and property disputes in black neighborhoods. David understood, initiating a discreet investigation. As she left, Crawford whispered, "Let's keep this between us. A complaint would strain our resources." Eleanor replied, "I'll give this the attention it deserves," her neutrality masking her resolve. At Patricia's modest home, Eleanor recounted her ordeal, her rumpled clothes a stark contrast to her usual judicial poise. Patricia, a community organizer, wasn't surprised. She produced a binder labeled Westbrook Documentation, detailing 3 years of racial profiling in Oak Lane, arrests, fines, and Crane Development's predatory property purchases. A laptop map showed Crane's strategic acquisitions, creating pressure on holdouts. The police harass until residents break, Patricia explained. Crawford signs off on evictions and fines, a judicial rubber stamp. A lawyer who challenged Crane faced disbarment after Crawford's ethics complaint. Using federal databases, Eleanor uncovered Crane's donations to Crawford's campaign and Hargrove's police foundation, plus a 400% spike in Oak Lane code enforcement versus white areas. Across town, Hargrove, Rawlins, Bennett, and Crane met in Crawford's wood-paneled study. Crane, a polished developer in his 60s, raged, "A federal judge. This could derail Oak Lane Square." Crawford insisted Eleanor wouldn't file a complaint, citing her silence. Hargrove worried about her phone call, suspecting lawyer speak. Rawlins proposed claiming she was intoxicated, erratic. Crawford suggested state judicial contacts question her stability. Crane planned media stories framing her as vengeful. Unaware, Eleanor had secured a medical exam documenting no intoxication and handcuff marks, plus the teenager's video of her arrest via Patricia's contacts. The next morning, the Westbrook Gazette blared, "Federal judge detained after erratic driving," quoting Hargrove and Crawford. Patricia's community center received sudden code violations, threatening closure within 48 hours. Tasha was fired after police pressured her employer, despite stellar reviews. Marcus was rearrested on trumped-up drug charges, his bail unaffordable. Eleanor met civil rights attorney Damon Reynolds, who had 23 failed cases against Westbrook due to witness intimidation and Crawford's dismissals. "Your judicial status changes everything," he said, eyeing her evidence. Eleanor secured Patricia's binder in federal storage, contacted the DOJ's Civil Rights Division, and met Deputy AG Lawrence Chen and investigator Monica Patterson in Detroit. They confirmed prior failed probes due to Crawford's political ties. That night, Officer Daniels texted anonymously, arranging a meeting in a public lot with Reynolds nearby. Daniels, an idealistic rookie, revealed a pipeline from Hargrove to Crawford to Crane, with bonuses for Oak Lane arrests. His grandmother's similar displacement fueled his betrayal. Eleanor promised federal protection. Intimidation surged. A sedan trailed Eleanor. Patricia's window was smashed with a note, "Mind your own business," and police delayed response. At the courthouse, Crawford offered context over dinner, warning, reputations are easily damaged. Her office was burgled, targeting civil rights files. Rawlins parked outside Patricia's home, blaring sirens nightly. At a restaurant, Crane offered bribes disguised as donations, $1 million, $5 million, a foundation. Eleanor rebuffed him, her voice icy. We're finishing our meal. She feigned retreat, suggesting to Patricia in their likely bugged home that jurisdictional issues might halt her efforts. This emboldened the conspirators. Daniels provided damning evidence, emails targeting Oak Lane, lost dashcam footage of her arrest, and payments from Crane to Hargrove's brother-in-law. Crane pushed demolitions, including Patricia's center, with Crawford's pre-approved permits. Eleanor secured a federal injunction halting Oak Lane evictions, citing a civil rights probe, sowing confusion. Daniels warned of a plot against Eleanor. She set a trap at the Wilson property, a historic black-owned home. Federal marshals hid in the woods, cameras recorded inside. She leaked a fake informant meeting, luring Rawlins and Bennett. They entered, guns drawn, accusing her of trespassing. You focus on Oak Lane properties refusing Crane's offers, she said. Rawlins sneered, some people have accidents, like Dr. Wilson's heart attack. He pressed his gun to her temple, saying, You became agitated, threatening. Tragic mistakes were made. Eleanor called. Federal marshals now. Marshals stormed in, disarming Rawlins and catching Bennett. Raids hit the police station, courthouse, and Crane's offices. Hargrove barricaded himself, but Daniels and others refused to resist. Crawford was caught fleeing with offshore account documents. At Crane's office, Eleanor rejected his $10 million bribe. Justice isn't for sale, she said as he was arrested, journalists capturing the scene. She freed Marcus and Tasha, filing federal complaints for their mistreatment. News announced 15 arrests, including Hargrove, Crawford, and Crane, for corruption and civil rights violations. Oak Lane celebrated as the community center was saved. Do you believe accountability applies to all, regardless of power? Comment 1 for yes. Like and subscribe if you support exposing systemic injustice. What's Westbrook's future? 6 months later, Westbrook transformed. Hargrove received 20 years, Crawford awaited trial, and Crane's empire collapsed. The police department, under federal oversight, embraced community policing, with Daniels leading bias training. Oak Lane properties gained historic status, and Patricia's center thrived. Tasha led a police oversight committee. Marcus began law school under Eleanor's mentorship. Her task force exposed similar schemes in 3 towns. At her circuit court confirmation hearing, Senator Richardson questioned her activism. Eleanor responded, when local authorities conspire to deny rights, the judiciary must intervene. Justice requires courage, especially for the vulnerable. Confirmed narrowly, she visited Westbrook, where the town's sign read, Where justice matters for everyone. At the community center, she inspired students, emphasizing the law's power to protect. Those with authority must ensure justice for all, she told them. This story reveals systemic racism's machinery. Crawford, Hargrove, and Crane's network oppressed black residents, shielded by power. Daniels, Tasha, and Marcus risked everything. Eleanor used her privilege to uplift others. Have you felt powerless against discrimination? Comment your story. Like, subscribe, and share if her courage inspires you. What justice stories do you want next? Thank you for joining The Heart Listens. Justice begins with one person refusing injustice, no matter the cost.